Hi, my name is Jonathan, and this class is gentler yoga, and it's designed for two types of people. So the first are the types that are stuck indoors and have not done any physical exercise for an extended period of time. And then the other group are those that are doing 4 to 5 live Instagram workouts, whether it's boxing or high intensity interval training, and just need a little bit gentler practice. It's called gentler just because it's a relative term. I'm not necessarily a gentle yoga teacher, a lie on your back and just stretch and feel kind of teacher, but it's gentler in the sense that it's going to be slower paced, and then we'll focus on alignment as well. And particularly it'll be two aspects of alignment. One is moving the tops of the thigh bones back, and then the other is pushing the thighs out to the sides. And I'll get into it as we do the practice, and you'll hear it over and over and over and over again. So let's begin right away. We may use a block towards the end in bridge pose, but you don't necessarily need it. And starting in all fours position. So in all fours, just hands and knees position. Place your hands under your shoulders. Spread your fingers. And align the space between your index finger and your middle finger to point straight forward. And the reason we don't use the fingers themselves is that if you look at your hands, you can actually independently move your fingers compared to your hands. And it's not common in everyone, but I have seen it. Some people have curved fingers, so it's not necessarily easy to point a curved finger forward. Actively push your hands down and push your hands out to the sides. And that's a way to get energy and strength in your arms. Now, same idea with your legs. Push your knees out to the sides so that you feel your glutes strengthen and tone. And the act of pushing your knees out to the sides is a lot easier when the knees are on the ground, but that's the thighs pushing out side of things. To move the top of your thighs back, it's pretty simple. Just move your hips back so that you get a little arch in your low back. Then make a fist with your left hand and lift your left leg out to the side. In the leg out to the side position, pull your knee forward, sit your hips back. And this is just stage 1, just stay here. Stage 2, turn it into a balance right away. Lift your left hand and then cup the back of your head. And embrace the wobble. I've done this hundreds, thousands of times, and even still, I wobble. And then lower your left hand, lower your left knee, pause, push the hands down, push your hands out, push your knees forward, move the top of your thighs back, and push your knees out to the sides. Try to broaden and widen your sit bones and widen your thighs. Then lean a little to the left, lift your right leg out to the side, and rise onto your right fingertips or a fist, or lift your hand and cup the back of your head. Sit your hips back, pull your knee forward, embrace the wobble. The point of the wobble is to strengthen. It's gentle in the sense that this isn't an intense side plank. It's more accessible, but difficult to do. Then lower your hand and lower your knee. Tuck your toes under and lift your knees to hover away from the floor for bear pose. In bear pose, push your knees forward to move the top of your thighs back. And you can see the difference. If I move the top of the thighs forward, it ends up being a tucked under position. It doesn't feel so good. It's more of an Eeyore position. Eeyore. And instead, find more of a Tigger, move the top of your thighs back. Top of the thighs back is just a euphemism for moving your butt back, but doing so much more. Push your knees out to the side. It's more difficult to get the action of knees pushing out to the side because the knees aren't on the floor. On your next exhale, lower your knees down and pause. Notice with the knees down, you can push the knees out to the side to re-strengthen your legs. Then on an inhale, lift your left leg back behind you and reach your right arm forward. I used to always know this one as just an all fours variation, but the gym calls it bird dog. Bird dog. I'm not so sure why. Reach and extend, full stretch, and then lower your hand, lower your knee, and switch sides. Lift your right leg back and extend your left arm straight forward. And in a lot of ways, this is an easier balance than that first one we did with all fours and the leg went out to the side. Push and reach, and then lower your hand. Step your foot back, plank pose, and then two choices to stay with your knees lifted or lower your knees in the transition to lower down onto your belly. Setting up for Shalabhasana locust pose, point your toes, reach your arms alongside you, and then on an inhale, lift your arms up, lift your chest up, and rise up. I would consider this one of the more gentler back bends, but gentle doesn't necessarily mean without effort. So the higher you lift, the more intense it becomes. On your next exhale, lower down. Take a moment to pause, to bring the effort level down to the lowest setting. And then on this next round of Shalabhasana, option to lift your legs as well. So inhale and rise up. Lift your feet, lift your knees. You're welcome to bring the feet together to create more of a connection to the midline. Take one last deep breath in, lift up high. And then exhale, lower back down. 3 more just with an inhale up and an exhale down. So inhale and rise up. Exhale and lower down. Inhale and rise up. Exhale and lower down. Last lift. Inhale, rise up full capacity. And then exhale, lower. Place your hands under your shoulders. Keep your knees down, lift your feet. Push the knees down, push your hands down, and lift to all fours position. Then lower your right foot with your toes pointed. Step your left foot back so your leg is straight with your knee lifted, and then roll to the inner edge of your left foot. Place your left hand to your hip. So it's just a side plank variation with your knee down. If you need a bit more help balancing, pivot on your right knee so you take your foot off of the mat to the right. Twist to the left and reach your arm up into the air. So a modified version of side plank, a much more accessible version in the sense of not putting as much pressure on your arm. Option as well to add a thigh stretch here. Lift your left leg, bend your knee, and grab hold of your foot. Of course, if you're someone who wants more intensity, you're always welcome to go into the more challenging version of poses. That would be side plank with your lower knee lifted. Kick your foot back, lift your chin. Feel a stretch even for the front part of your left shoulder. And then release your foot, lower your hand down, lower your knee down, and just switch to the other side. So the left knee can pivot so your foot rolls off of the mat, and then extend your right leg long, reach your right arm up into the air. Don't underestimate just doing the pose really well. Move your hips back, push your left hand down, and option to lift your right leg up. You're welcome to bend your knee, grab hold of your foot, and kick your foot back for the additional thigh stretch. Oftentimes our desire is to always look up to the ceiling. Oh my God, what's up there? But in this case, think of dancer's pose. If you're standing and you're looking to the ceiling is now looking towards the front of your mat, that direction. So just lifting the chin out of the chest, not necessarily finding the twist in your neck. And then release your foot, lower your hand, tuck your toes under and lift your knees. Send your hips up and back for downward facing dog. In downward facing dog, have wide feet, bend your knees, and when you bend your knees, it's easier to move the top of the thighs back. So the top of the thighs meaning where the thigh bones connect into the hip sockets. And then push your knees out to the side without having your heels come in. So as you push your knees out, push your heels out at the same time. Try to widen your thighs, get stronger with your legs, keep the top of your thighs back to get a little arch in your low back, and then push your legs straight from there as you reach and extend your hands forward.
One last deep breath in, and then exhale. Slowly walk your feet forward for a standing forward fold position. This is where the block could be useful to just bow in and bring your hands to the block. Pausing here, bend your knees and then lift up for a halfway lift position. So your hands are at the top of the knees. So when the knees go forward, it's easier to move the top of the thighs back. When the top of the thighs go back, you can find the natural curvature of your low back inwards. At the same time as you do that, place your hands to the outside of your knees. Gently push your knees towards each other with your hands, but then the knees say no. Push your knees back out against the resistance of your hands. So the knees will stay fixed, but as you put the pressure of pushing your knees out into the resistance of your hands, try to widen your thigh bones further, especially the upper thigh bones and the back of your pelvis, your sit bones, and then feel the strength. Feel the engagement of your legs, and on your next exhale, dive forward. Touch your hands down and push your legs straighter. Straighter, again, is a relative term. You don't have to go straight. And for some of you, the problem is you go past straight. So straight is straight, and hyperextended is past straight, which is not straight. One more time, halfway lift. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale and pause. Place your hands to your hips, elbows out to the side, lift your chin, and inhale, slowly rise all the way up to stand. Release your arms alongside you. The dominant tendency in yoga, especially in standing position, Tadasana, is actually to move the top of the thighs forward. So looking like this, and I'll just turn my body so you see the side plane. So rarely do we see people actually move the top of the thighs back. Instead, it's more like this, where the hips go way forward and then the shoulders are back. This is so common. I see it all the time. So instead, bend your knees slightly and then move the top of the thighs back. Of course, it's harder to do now unless you had a rubber band that would wrap around your knees. You'll sometimes see those in fitness classes where you have to push your knees out. It's the exact same process. But move the top of your thighs back, push your knees out, and then keep that, and then push your legs straighter from there. And of course, if you just need help getting the idea of moving the tops of your thighs back, it's really easy. There's a simple exercise. It's called chair pose. Bend your knees and sit down for chair. So it's very hard to move the top of the thighs forward. You can try that, and you're not going to stay very long in chair pose. It's not going to be relaxing. So move the top of your thighs back. If you need a mood enhancer, take your hands like this, reach them behind you, grab both cheeks and lift them up. Notice there's a direct correlation between your glutes, your butt lifting, and then the corners of your lips. It just feels good. And then return back to chair. You're welcome to float the arms forward or even reach the arms up. Holding strong, dig deep. Take one last deep breath in, and then on an exhale, slowly rise to stand. Lean to your right foot and lift your left leg. Just a basic balance position. Bend your standing leg just a little bit to add slight challenge here. And then from your knee to your hip, pull your knee directly towards your hip and use that as a connection to arch your low back slightly and lift up taller. And then with your left hand, especially to the outside of your knee, just push your left knee to the left, but resist with your hand and use that to move your hips further back. One last breath in, and then lower your foot and immediately go to the second side. So the challenge of gentler yoga is it's not necessarily gentle yoga. It's not just lift your knee, breathe, relax your spirit. There's still engagement that can be made even in the gentler positions. So pull your knee in towards your hip, push your knee back towards your hands and out to the side. Bend your standing leg a little bit. Look forward. You're always welcome to breathe in and out of your mouth as long as you're 2 meters away from someone else. One last breath in, and then lower your foot, going right into the first side again. So rising up, again, you can just stay here, or this time hold under your thigh. To move the top of your thighs back, in this case, the thigh is horizontal, so back is down. Whoa! That's my Keanu Reeves Matrix impression. Whoa! The thigh moving back is down. So with the thigh moving back is down, drop the weight of your leg into your hands till your arms engage, and then push your leg straighter in front of you. Lift your chin. Again, straighter is a relative term. If your leg isn't straight and you're feeling an intense stretch and even a shake of my leg, you're doing fantastic. One more breath, and then immediately switch to the other side. So no breaks. We get the break at the end. Holding your knee, stand tall, look forward, and then hold under your thigh. Drop the weight of your leg into your hand. Move your hips back and extend your leg forward. Standing tall. As you extend your leg forward, just push your leg slightly straighter until you feel the resistance. Drop the weight of your thigh into your hands, so you're supporting yourself and you're getting stronger in your arms at the same time. Okay, then lower your foot, turn to a long edge side of your mat and take a wide stance with your legs. Wide is usually defined as with your arms out to a capital T, that your feet are under your wrists. So you can just point your fingers down, or if you have some tennis balls, you can always drop them down. Be careful not to drop like lacrosse balls or golf balls, that might actually hurt. And then bend your knees slightly, place your hands to your hips. So the idea of bending your knees is it gives you the option to tilt your pelvis slightly and move the tops of your thighs back. Compare and contrast is a useful tool in terms of just understanding why moving the tops of your thighs back is beneficial for the body. So to feel the opposite way to begin with, straighten your legs, move the tops of your thighs forward, tuck your tailbone down, and then in that position of your tailbone tucked, start to bow forward and just notice whether that's a positive affirmation or a negative one. And then come back up. And for me, that actually feels quite gross in my body. I would just resist that constantly. So instead, bend your knees. You can use like a karate chop. I don't know if Keanu Reeves ever did this as Neo, but like, hi-ya, boom. Move the tops of your thighs back so that you're hinging at your hips as you bow forward, as opposed to rounding the spine. And then touch your hands down. Push your knees out to the sides. If you need that extra help, place your hands to the outside of your knees, push your knees out, try to widen your thigh bones. As you push the knees out, move the top of your thighs back and press your legs straighter. And then from there, bring your hands down. You're welcome to walk your hands towards your feet that direction. The fingers are in line with your toes. Push the hands forward meaning relative to the position you are right now, towards the head side of your mat as you bow in. And then walk your hands forward, bend your knees slightly, either place your hands to your knees or extra challenge, cup the back of your head, and on an inhale, slowly rise up. Turn your left foot in a little bit, turn your right foot out, and then bend into your knee, working towards getting your front thigh parallel to the floor. To move the top of the thigh back, it's the same as what we did there when the thigh was parallel to the floor, and I did that Keanu Reeves impression. So drop the thigh down, place the forearm to the thigh, and pause. So it's pretty easy in the front leg. It's kind of like chair pose. You get it for free. The back leg, though, has a tendency to pop forward. where your thigh goes forward. So bend your back knee and then move your groins back, move the top of your thigh back. What happens there is the front knee then comes forward and you have to be like, hey, no, you got to stay back and let the back thigh go back. With your hand to your hip, twist fully to the side, and then reach your arm over your ear, stretch and extend fully for side angle pose. Of course, if you want to go for a bind or hand to the floor, go for it. It's just gentler yoga. It doesn't matter. It's all about just feeling good. Gentler yoga, still intense though. Push with your feet, and on an inhale, slowly rise up. Straighten your front leg, turn your right toes in, turn your left leg out, bend into your knee, forearm to your thigh, and right hand to the hip. It can be advantageous to turn the back foot in a little bit, bend your knee and move your hips back. Move the top of your thighs back. Push the left knee out to the side. You could even think of pushing the right knee out to the side to get the leg stronger. Sit down lower and then swing your right arm in line with your ear. Actively reach and stretch as you turn the left side waist forward and the right side waist back. So it becomes a twist position. Actively reach, stretch all the way. And with your next inhale, rise up, straighten your left leg, turn your toes in, and then heel toe the feet slightly closer, but turn your toes out, and then bend your knees into saddle pose. Sometimes it's called goddess pose, might be other names of poses as well, but just sitting in a wide squat with your feet out. I think the gym calls it sumo squats, which is nice. Oh, sumo. But here, push your knees forward and move your groins back. It's easier to get the tops of the thighs back when the knees are in slightly. The problem is keeping the knees in all the way can be detrimental for the knee health. So then you also have to counter that by pushing the knees out to the side. If you push the knees out to the side too much, then your hips go forward. So it's always a balancing act, which is really just yoga in a nutshell. Staying low, if you want extra intensity, you can lift your heels and you can lift your arms into cactus blades position. Same idea here. If your elbows go back too far, it ends up jutting your shoulders forward. So move your elbows forward. From your elbows to your armpits, pull your arms back into the shoulder sockets. Then open your elbows out. Embrace, feel the hug of your shoulder blades behind your back. Don't hugs feel so great? And then keep the hug of your shoulder blades. Push your arms up into the air. Sit down lower. Hold strong. And with your next inhale, lower your heels, straighten your legs. Heel toe your feet wide again with your arms out. And then left foot in a bit. Right foot out 90 degrees. Settle into warrior two. The advantage that side angle had was you could tinker around with your legs. And eventually this is actually just the same position from the hips down as side angle pose. So just trying to match what we did on the first side, or the first run through, with now warrior two. And instead we can focus on more important things, like metaphors. Be a warrior. What is a warrior? Whoa. I wish I was the last samurai, but Tom Cruise was. Whoa. Push your right leg straight. Turn your right toes in. Turn your left foot out. And then bend into your left leg. Pop quiz, hotshot. What are the two physical focuses that we're working on in class today? Can you remember? Top of the thighs back, and then pushing the thighs out wide, which is a lot more difficult to do when the body's not in a symmetrical position. So the left leg and the right leg are doing very different things at this moment in time. Straighten your left foot, turn your left foot in, and then step your feet close. Bring your arms down alongside you. Turn to face the front of your mat again, and then clasp your hands behind your back. Bend your knees slightly. For the sake of pushing the knees out, it's a little easier to have your feet hip distance apart. There's nothing wrong with your feet together, and this next pose, it's more difficult with your feet together. So you're always welcome to make things more difficult for yourself. But now bend your knees, move the top of your thighs back, push your knees out to the side, tilt forward instead of rounding all the way in Uttanasana, the bowed forward position. Try to stay in a halfway lift position. Bend your knees. We often call this pose what the. Lift your heels to hover away from the floor. So it may be hover and waver. Hold strong. Who got this? You got this. We got this. The pose is called what the because it's what you say when you do it for the first time. You go like, what the? And then you can add whatever word you want. One last breath in, and then lower your heels. Touch your fingers to the floor. Halfway lift, hands to the top of the shins. Push your shins forward. Move the top of your thighs back so you get an arch in your low back. Hands to the outside of your knees. Push your knees out to the side. Lengthen. And then exhale, bow in. Step your left foot back and lower your knee to the floor. I like to point the back toes. It just feels better to be on the top of the shin as opposed to the kneecap. And then rise up, hands to your front knee. And just explore in this position. No rush. Move your hips forward. Move your hips back. There's no rush for anything. We've got lots of time. And then just explore the area that feels the best in your low lunge position. When you push the knees forward, especially on the back leg, if you push the back knee forward, it can help to move the top of the thigh back. And then push your knees out to the side. With your back knee down, it's easier to feel that action. With your front knee, you can just place your right hand to the outside of your knee and push your knee out. Try to broaden and widen your sit bones. Then hook your thumbs. With your thumbs hooked, reach your arms up and push your hands away from each other. Stretch your arms all the way to capacity. If you have big biceps like me, you're in danger of crushing your own head like a nutcracker. So be careful. I'm extra careful in this one. And then touch your hands down. Lift your back knee, step forward, and then step back. So right knee down, and then rise up, hands to your front knee. Move your hips forward. Move your hips back. So just exploring the depth of the pose, getting in low, and then moving back. And then again, move your hips back initially, just form. And then action is push your back knee forward to move the top of your right thigh back. The top of the left thigh back is just using gravity to move and anchor your thigh back. Then push your right knee to the right, left knee out into the left hand till you feel more strength and engagement. Hook your thumbs the other way, the non-dominant way you make a butterfly, shadow puppet. And then reach your arms up into the air. Push the hands away from each other. Get your arms strong. Reach up all the way to capacity. And then keeping the action of the top of the thigh, moving back, start to move the body forward. You can sink lower down into your lunge, exploring a deeper variation. And then touch your hands down, step forward, and step back. For this one, I actually like to use a block, so I'll just keep it handy on the left side of the mat, but just beginning in a runner's lunge position. So again, the front leg, it's pretty easy. You're just using the bend of the knee to drop the thigh lower to the floor. The challenge though is the back leg, because now it's gravity that's doing the work against moving the top of the thigh back. So it takes effort to lift your thigh up. And then now, if you want, you could use the block under your left hand or just keep your fingertips to the floor. Again, I like the block. It just gives a bit more advantage. Right hand to right knee and begin to twist to the right. The advantage of the hand to the knee is you can push the knee out to the side. As you do that, twist fully and then float your arm towards the front of your mat. The tendency here is to over twist and have your left hip drop. So keep the left thigh lifted, wrap the right butt under, twist from the left side waist to the right, and then actively reach your fingertips forward as you extend your heel back. Full breath in, then turn to the floor, hand down, step forward, and step back. Place your block off to the other side. And again, block, it's just there because I like to play with blocks when I'm alone. So I've got about 7 or 8 there. I just build things with them. It's great. It's like being in kindergarten again. Left hand to your knee. Lift the right thigh up. Wrap your left butt under. Begin to twist. And then float your arm forward. Of course, if you'd like to go arm up into the air, you're welcome to do that. I just like the act of reaching forward, tacking the left hip back. So thinking of something pulling the left hip back as I reach the left arm forward. Full stretch. And then turn to the floor, hand down, step forward, and step back. Knee to the floor again. And then wiggle your right foot off to the edge of your mat, even turn it out slightly, setting up for lizard pose. Lizard pose can be pretty mellow. It can just be hands down and bend your elbows, sink lower. It can be a bit of a stretch, even for myself, to get the elbows down. I do like to use a block on this one. Just makes it a bit more accessible, a bit more relaxing. And another option for those of you who are pretty intense is you can always lift your back knee in this position. So lots of variations. Again, I might just even stay on my hands. It just feels really good, especially to move the body a little bit. There's a lot of movement possible with the thighs in the hip socket. So it's just nice to get into areas that can sometimes get a little bit sticky if you're sitting in your couch for an entire day for the next 3 months. Then tuck your back toes and then push, step forward and step back. Lower your knee. Wiggle your left foot off to the edge of the mat. Lift. Move your hips back. Think of someone pulling your hips back to get the top of your right thigh back. And then from there, drop down onto the elbows or elbows to a block. Again, of course, you can lift your back knee away from the floor. You're at home. It's not like I can get upset at you for doing anything. You can just stop, have a bowl of cereal, some Lucky Charms, Frosted Flakes. I hear they're great. And then again, just move your hips a little bit around at this point. So letting go of the tops of the thighs back and push the knees out to the side. Fixation of class. And instead, just find some freedom, find some movement. It's nice to have specific alignment to focus on, except when you become too rigid and too focused on those alignments. If you go too far down one path, you can end up getting stuck or lost, and it's nice to go down different directions, which is just a good way of saying cross-training is fantastic for the body. Okay, wiggle your left foot in again, tuck your back toes, and then step forward. And then from here on an inhale, lengthen up, lift up halfway. So holding this position, just repeating again. Push the knees forward, move the top of the thighs back, get a slight arch in your low back. As you push the knees forward, that's action. And then movement is start to push your legs a little straighter. Then place your hands to the outside of your knees, push your knees out into your hands, and then finish your legs going as straight as possible while keeping the arch in your low back. And that can become really, really intense. Keep your big toes pushing down as you push your knees out. And then inhale, slowly rise up. Keep the intensity and strength in your legs. Bend your knees slightly, cup the back of your head with both hands, point your elbows forward like headstand, push your head back into your hands, keep the engagement, keep the strength of your legs, same thing as you just did in the halfway lift position, moving your hips back, start to lean back, go to your edge. Where's your back bend capacity? How far can you lean back? I can see the ceiling right now. I'm trying to go a little further. Maybe the back ceiling. I'll see if I can get to a point where I can see the back wall a little bit. Oh, I see it. And then there may be some who can see the floor behind them. I'm almost there. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm okay with that. Reach your arms forward. Lean over to your right foot. Lift your left leg. This time cross your ankle over your knee. Place one hand. This one's got to be really, really precise. So hand, karate chop style, but at the very inner part, or just like the most basic part of your butt crack. Yeah. But point being, if you just open the knee out to the side, you can end up crushing your hand. So instead, lift the knee up, grab your butt with both hands, lift your butt up, try to move the top of the thigh back, tilt forward, and then open your knee out to the side. From there, you can sink lower down and bring your elbows to your shin, and then pause and hold. Another version I like to do is just put the right hand at the base of the right foot and then push the hand into the foot to focus on moving the top of the thigh back further. So from knee to hip, and I'll even add that. So I'm not pushing the knee down, I'm pushing the knee towards the hip so that the hip goes back. Oh, that feels great. On your next inhale, slowly rise up and then just switch. Lift your right foot, cross ankle over your knee. The reason I go ankle as opposed to the foot is just if you do the foot, then the ankle joint becomes part of the pose. But if you do just, and it's not the ankle, it's the base of the shin bone, then you take the ankle joint out of the pose. So again, lift the knee up, a little bit counter to what you might be used to. Use both hands, lift your butt up, mood enhancer, feeling good. Who loves yoga? Gentler yoga, so much better than just gentle yoga. It's even gentler. And then tilt forward again. You could hook your elbows. Just depends on your balance ability, or hand to the bottom of the foot. Right hand pulls the knee towards the hip socket, not to the floor, not trying to force anything. Okay, and then rise up, release the leg, setting down into a squat position. So separate your feet, turn your feet out, and then sit down for a squat. This is where if you're a little bit challenged in your squat, you could always use your block to sit on the block. No joke, but I used to need a couple of blocks like that when I started. So it's okay. Everyone's at different places. Not everyone knows what knee pain is. I don't have much knee problems with my left knee, probably almost nil my whole life, but my right knee has always been pretty sensitive since high school age, so that's like about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Okay, from squat position, helpful to not have the block. More advanced is to just lower down onto your butt into boat pose. If you need a bit extra help, bring your hands behind you, then lean back. Lift your feet, lift your arms, boat pose. I never really understood boat pose until adding the half boat position as well. So stage 1 is here. You could even do a stage 0.5 where you bring your heels down and then just lift up. But stage 1 here. Stage 2 is to reach your arms forward as you extend the legs forward and lean back, and then bend your knees and pull your arms in. And then you just continue that. So it's like you're rowing a boat. Merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream. And then come all the way up. Lower your feet. Place your hands behind you, reverse tabletop. There's 3 ways to do this. We'll do all 3 ways. So one is with the fingers pointing forward. Push down with your hands, lift your hips up. Lower your hips. The next is turn your hands out to the sides. Push and lift your hips. And then lower your hips. And the final one is to have your fingers point all the way back behind you so the chest gets really open, and lift your hips up and lower back down. And then do one more, your choice. My choice is usually the middle ground. We just call it the Goldilocks Principle. The part that's just right, but begin to critically think for yourself which one feels better, because what works for me may not work for you and may not work for someone else. So find what is best for you, the real secret and power of yoga. Next pose is Bada Konasana, bound angle pose. If you're super flexible, you may actually prefer to use a block to put under your feet to do the pose like that. I'm on the super less flexible side of things, and I'm okay with that. So it's helpful to sit onto a block and then join the feet together. And then 2 main directions that you can go in this one, which is either heels close to your pelvis and lift tall. You can even lean back as you open your knees out to the sides. The other option is to move the feet forward a little bit, and then you can go for a little dive through your legs, going under, bringing your hands underneath your shins to hold your feet, and then forehead to the feet. I need a slightly bigger forehead to touch, but I'm close. And I'm sure some of you can literally put your feet in your mouth. Just make sure that you've washed your feet with soap and water before you put anything in your mouth. And I'm going to stay on the block for this next one. It's a twist. You're always welcome to make things a bit more challenging, but rise up, place your hands to the outside of your knees, bring your knees in, and then extend your left leg forward. If you're on a block, be careful about the idea of straightening your leg and then actually going past straight into a hyperextended position. So that's a little bit of an example of a hyperextended position. If you're not on a block, it doesn't matter. The hyperextension position happens if you lift your heel away from the floor. But if you're on a block, you have to really dig down to keep the leg active and engaged. Move the top of the thigh back. And then with your right hand to the outside of your knee, just push your knee out into the resistance of your hands so you get more engagement and lift through your glutes, your spine, your ribs, the neck, and the crown of your head. And then now, hook your right elbow to the inside of your knee and begin to twist to the left. Push the knee into your elbow. Push the elbow back into your knee. Use your inhale to lift tall, and then your exhale to twist further to the left. On your next inhale, return to center. Slide your right leg forward and bend your left knee in. Then hold on to your knee, push your knee out to the side, dig your right heel down, flex your toes, lift tall. Hook your elbow now to the inside of your knee and begin to twist. If you've got a bind, you're welcome to go for it. I've quit binding in the last couple years, but I know that some are big binders. Big fan of binders. I personally have switched to the duotang. The benefit of the duotang is you stick to something, you stick to an order, and you don't change that because it's just so hard to change the order in a duotang. Okay, and then turn back to center. If you're on a block, try not to use a block for this one. It's called Dandasana, staff pose. It's in honor of my father, Don, who's had a tough last few years because his name is Donald, and he can't say that his name's Donald anymore because someone else is named Donald. But move the top of your thighs back. Try to lift up tall, hands beside your hips. And all it is just lift as tall as you can. And if your hamstrings are flexible, it's a pretty easy pose. If your hamstrings are less flexible, this is an intense position one of the most challenging and difficult positions. You could think of your hands being at your knees, even bending your knees. This is the halfway lift position, standing. A lot of these poses just return over and over again in different planes. And then now keeping the legs straight, returning to that reverse tabletop. Choose how you like your hands. Again, mine are out to the side. And then dig down with your heels, push with the heels, and then lift your hips up. You can bring your feet down, point your toes, and then either look forward, look up to the ceiling, or look back behind you. Again, I'm more of the Goldilocks to just look straight up. Lift the hips up. We're here for another 3 to 4 minutes. So hold strong. 3 to 4 breaths. Sorry. Said the wrong word. On your next exhale, lower your hips down. Keep your legs out in front of you. Cup the back of your head. We'll go into bridge pose next. So if you want the block, you can have it handy beside your hips. And then cupping your head, point your elbows in. And then tuck your chin, lean back just enough that you can lift your heels to hover away from the floor. This one is called half boat, but it's probably twice as difficult as regular boat. Hold strong. Shaking is weakness escaping the body. If you need a visual of it, watch the movie Ghost. Ditto. And then lower all the way onto your back, bend your knees. Bend your elbows, dig your elbows down for robot arms, have your feet in, and then lift your hips up. Where gentler yoga comes in is you can put a block under your hips. It can feel really great. So again, it could be lowest setting, middle setting, or highest setting. Highest setting, you have to have the flexibility to get all the way up. And it may actually feel better, especially with the action of moving the top of the thighs back, to go to the lowest setting, drop the pelvis down onto the block, lift your belly up, and then imagine pushing your knees out to the sides here. Holding strong, lifting your chest, digging your elbows down, and then on your next exhale, lower your hips all the way down, just put the block off to the side, and then extend your right leg up into the air, hold the back of your thigh. Remember when I did the Keanu Reeves impression and you dropped the weight of your thigh into your hands, same idea here, but the leg has to go away from the upper body into the hands. Use your hands to pull your thigh bone down into your hip socket. And then it's definitely more advantageous to keep your left knee bent and your foot flat, focusing just on one leg, but you can slide your right leg longer and emphasize, or pardon me, your left leg longer, and then emphasize your left thigh pressing down as well as you extend the right leg straighter. Relativity. And then switch legs. Lower your right foot down, lift your left leg in, hold the back of your thigh, and then extend your leg straighter. So hold low to the thigh, low as what is appropriate for the room that you're in. So getting towards the top of the thigh bone, and move the thigh back into your hands and then pull your thigh down into your hip socket. I always like the relative words, especially when it comes to weather, where someone might say to me like, oh, you said it was going to be warm today. And then I'll always say, no, I said it's going to be warmer. Warmer means that it's just 1 or 2 degrees warmer than the day before. I didn't say it was actually going to be warm. So the idea is still the same with extending your leg straighter. And that can be the truth with your right leg in this case, where you could still have the knee bent, dig the heel down. And when the knee's bent, it's a little easier to move the top of the right thigh back, which in this case is now down to the floor. And if you do straighten your leg all the way on the floor and then your heel lifts, that's where you go past straight into hyperextension. Okay, then bend your knee and then lower your foot. Just doing the same thing, except going back to bridge pose with the support. So lift your hips up. If you don't have a block, you could always take a book, especially if it's like a family member's book and then they like see that you put your butt on their book and like they're like, that's your book now. Drop your hips down onto your loved one's book. Bring your right knee in. Keep the hips moving back and then extend your legs straighter. And I am not doing this for a dramatic effect. This is up there in top hamstring stretches that I can find. You can go into robot arms, bring the upper body into the equation as well. Hold strong. This one feels great. And then the nice thing about having the block is you can switch legs by lifting up and then lowering down. And again, keep the hips heavy so the belly lifts, but the back of the pelvis drops, and then push your legs straighter from there. Shake, 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 shake. Okay, and then lower your foot. If you use the block, just lift your hips, move it off to the side. Cross your right ankle over your left thigh for thread the needle pose. Hold the top of your left shin, or you can hold the back of your thigh. I like just the top of the shin. It just gets a bit of a deeper stretch for me. Use your right elbow to just gently nudge your right knee out to the side. And at this point, slowing things down. And then release and switch sides. Take your left ankle over your right knee. Left hand in between the gap of your legs. Hold the top of your shin. Guide your knee down in towards your hip socket. Use your left elbow to nudge your knee out. And find a relaxed breath. And the effort level can diminish. Just starting to slow things down. And then lower your feet. Extend your legs straight. Join them together momentarily. Emphasize the tops of your thighs back so that your low back lifts slightly. And then bend your right knee and hold your knee with your left hand. Push your right knee to the right, but resist with the left hand. And then the right arm can go out to the side in a cactus blade position, and then find a gentle twist. And as the hand pulls the knee down, resist back with the knee pushing up into your hand. That adds the feedback to strengthen and lengthen the torso and gives you more opportunity to twist from left to right. We sometimes think that because the legs go to the left that it's a twist to the left, but it's actually twisting the torso from left to right. And then come all the way back up. Slide your right leg long and switch. Bend your left knee. Hold your knee with your right. If you've got the room to go arm all the way out to the side, then use the room. This is definitely the time period where people who have houses are thankful they have houses, and people who are in apartments are just thankful if they have a deck. So if you've got the space, use the space. Push your knee up into your hand, pull down, twist from right to left. And then one last pose, come up, hold your knees with both hands, position your knees directly over your hips with your feet just dangling underneath you, and then use gravity to guide your thigh bones down into your hip sockets, and push the knees ever so gently out to the side. Then one by one, slide your legs long for Shavasana, final resting pose. Position your arms alongside you. Let your feet flop to the sides. Allow the top of your thighs to be heavy. If you have extra blocks or bolsters that you could put on the top of your thighs to weight them down, you can do that. If you need examples of that, you can look up BKS Iyengar photos where he puts weighted plates like 25 or 35 pounds on his thighs so that the thighs stay back, and then the low back can lift ever so slightly, just the natural curvature. And that's all we really seek, is to just move towards what is natural for us. And of course, that's relative. Thinking of the idea of natural state as being your middle, and to find that takes the pendulum swing back and forth of intensity and solitude, activity and dormancy, until you find the place that is most inspiring and recharging.